In this episode, we're going to talk about my journey with virtual pinball. Let's do it. All right, we're back. It's Sunday.
We are back.
It's 12:15. That means there's 10 days till Christmas. So I figured I would wear my... Check this out. I had to look really cool when I do that, by the way. But check it out. I got a Christmas cat on my sweater. Look at this thing. I actually wore this when I was much skinnier, so it's like really, really bulging in the belly area, but it's cool. So Console Kits, what have you been up to, man? Give me the scoop. What's been going on this week? Anything interesting?
Scoop. This week, I guess I can talk about the mod that I worked on. A buddy of mine, I'm actually going to see him tomorrow. I'm flying out to Denver, and I'm going to hand deliver this mod to him because, that's what Console Kits does. If you're a good friend of mine, I'll do mods for you and hand deliver them to you.
Wow, I must not be a good friend then.
Yeah, so this is what's called the GBA Consolizer. And so there's some people that really love the Game Boy Advance so much that they want to watch it on their big high-definition television.
Wow.
And so this is a lag-free solution by GameTech. This is not a commercial, but I'm just letting you know.
By GameTech, this is a lag-free solution by GameTech.
Right. It's actually really cool because it's basically like Super Nintendo quality, and you can play those Game Boy games on a full screen TV. You just pick up the Game Boy Advance, like from eBay or something like that, and you try to find one that's broken, right? Like one that has a screen that's broken, which is pretty easy to find. And then you do this mod, has an FPGA in it, so it's doing the scaling of the tiny little screen up to your big screen, all in hardware.
Nice. That's cool.
It's pretty slick, looks pretty clean.
All right. Well, I have a feeling we might have to revisit that later on in the episode, I think, because there's going to be a reason to, I believe, but we'll see. So the past couple days, weeks have been kind of crazy, leading up to the holidays. And so, with the whole, in this episode, I'm not going to talk a ton about ToySHARK. I want to always call it ToySHARK. ToySHARK specifically, right. But I'm going to talk about virtual pinball because I started my virtual pinball journey about 2 years ago. And so the funny thing is this is something that Justin and I share together, actually, as a common, favorite type of favorite movie. But what started my journey is I saw this actual cabinet on Craigslist. So there was someone that was selling these, what I didn't know at the time was called VPcabs. So the company is called VPcabs, and they were selling this product, and it was skinned with Back to the Future. So it was a vertical pinball machine. So it sparked my interest because I was like, I've never really done much with virtual pinball outside of like stuff on my consoles. And, this idea of being able to stand was kind of cool. But one of the things that really got me, I'll get to in a minute. So I want to show a clip of, this is actually Brad of VPcabs. He's actually the owner of the company, showing off the Vertigo. You'll notice, we'll get to this in a little while, but it's running Pinball X as the front end. So even though it's got, we're going to dive deeper into this, but even though it's going to launch a whole bunch of different pinball emulators, whether it be Visual Pinball 9, 10, and we're going to get to all this, FX2, FX3, it's using one common native interface in the front, which is Pinball X. We're going to get to Pinball X because almost everything I've actually used to date uses Pinball X. I just didn't know at the time that that's what I was using. I didn't dive deep into the details. I just enjoyed the cabinet. But what got me with this cabinet was, if you guys look at it, yes, it's vertical pinball, but it has a joystick, 3 buttons, and it also has a trackball on it. So I don't know if you guys can see that, but I'm going to move to another clip here in a second, and you're going to see you can actually play arcade games on it too. So I was like,
what?
Oh my God. Yeah. So I was like, oh my gosh, how cool would it be to have a vertical pinball machine? Like, at the time I was so hyped up over this that I wasn't even thinking clearly. And I happened to be doing pretty well financially at my job. And there was a guy that was a vendor that sold one of these, that was selling these, and he wasn't selling the Back to the Future one. He had sold it, which really bummed me out. But I was like, dude, okay, so it's virtual pinball. It's got arcade games. The only thing and it had a real DMD, so I don't know if you guys can see that. If you look at the top, oops, that's the wrong clip.
Nope.
If you look at the top, which you can't see there, maybe you can in this.
Oh,
see
is
that?
it like right above?
Right up there.
Oh, I see it. Yep.
Yeah, so that had a real DMD in it, which was super slick. And it's a real one. It looks badass. I mean, so I was sold. I was like, this is going to be wicked cool. I'm going to totally invest in this. It's going to be great. So I'll tell you a little bit about what things I had
Whoa.
were.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Start the story where you went to pick up the one Craigslist.
Oh yeah,
and had Back to the Future.
So I didn't know this guy at the time. I reached out to him on Craigslist. I was like, oh my gosh, this Back to the Future thing, which was this one. That looks sick. I want it. He's like, dude.
You gotta stop for a second. I'm sorry. Love Back to the Future too much for you to skip this part. You have to tell me about this particular game. Like, what does it make sounds from Back to the Future? Like what?
Yeah, so it's actually an FX3. I believe it's FX3. I can't remember if it's FX2 or FX3, but it's an maybe it's FX2. I can't remember. But you can actually get this. So this is part of the Universal collection. So you can go on like your Xbox and download. I think I can't remember if it's the Pinball Arcade app or whatever, but you can actually play this. I'll put links in the description because I can't remember. But yeah, no, the game is really cool. People had claimed that they use the real voice actors. There's no way. It's people trying to act as Doc Brown and Marty, so that's a little bit of a bummer. But it has like a whole bunch of stuff, like all the scenes. There'll be a scene where you hit something with the ball, and he'll go, "You have to think fourth dimensionally." Like it's really cool. Like all these cool.
Dude, that's like my favorite line. I swear to God, like at work, there's like things where things are really complex, and they're like, "How do you do this?" I'm like, dude. You got to think fourth dimensionally.
Yeah, so it has a bunch of things. It has 88 miles per hour. It has all the classic lines from the game. But okay, I got to address this because Retro Junkie even said $4,000. Like, holy crap. So at the time, I was same thing. I'm like, why is this so expensive? Right? But at the time, I just thought it was one of those things. Like, it's virtual pinball. It must be super expensive. There is no such thing as budget virtual pinball. That in my mind at that time, okay? We're going to take this journey because obviously we're at a place where they're starting to show up. So is it possible? And I want to go down that road because did you guys do the voiceovers? I don't know.
No, but I think Ralph could do the voiceover right now if you wanted him to. Come on. Do your best Marty McFly. Come on.
I actually can't do a Marty McFly very well. No, I can't. Maybe we'll see. We'll see what I can do.
Let's move on.
So all right. So the Back to the Future one is what hopped me up, and I went on Craigslist. He had it up there. He didn't sell it to me. I don't think I paid $4,000 for it because that sounds like a lot, but I can't remember what I paid. But it was still really expensive, right?
Well, you got a used one, right?
Yeah, yeah, it was because it was on Craigslist. It was someone else. It was like a return. It was like he had a return. But the thing is, if you treat these things well, it's like brand new. So some of the specs in it, right? So I had to write them down because I couldn't remember everything. So this is what this thing has in it. So you started going like, all right, why is it so expensive? It had a 32-inch 1080p, LED play field, right? It had a 15.6-inch LED DMD. So that thing you see up there, that DMD up there, that's actually 15.6 inches. It's an LED DMD. Think about it. It's got the joystick. It had an i3 processor at the time, so it had an Intel i3. But here's where I was like, oh crap! And at the time, this would have been an expensive graphics card. It had the GTX. It had the 1060 graphics card in it, right? So it needed a pretty decent graphics card. It had 8 gigs of RAM, 240 gig SSD drive. It has a 600 watt power supply. It had a subwoofer in it. Like this thing, no joke, console kits. Like I'm not even kidding you. No kidding. My neighbor, she's like, what the hell did you do last night till like 1 o'clock in the morning? Because where I had the pinball is like, so it's up against a wall that's an exterior wall, and her like dining room is like kind of across. And she said she could hear the bass because I had this thing jacked up. So they have like a really good audio system in it. I mean, it really was awesome. It didn't have any force feedback though. It didn't have that. So anyway.
So what year was this?
It would have been about exactly 2 years ago. It would have been almost like 2 years to the date, actually.
I was thinking because when did this thing come out? So they put like an i3 in it.
It would have been about 3 probably years ago that it got like maybe beta like release. So like it's probably about a 3-year-old product in production, I would think. It's probably around that time. So they weren't using like, i5s or anything yet, but they didn't need to. They had a beefy graphics card and everything. I think
I see.
So anyways, so it sounds great, awesome. So what are my beefs with it? So as I started playing with it for a long time, imagine you're playing vertical pinball. You're standing. You start doing this. Imagine doing that with your neck up for like hours, right? It got really uncomfortable. That was the problem. So I was like, shit. And so of course, like anything else, I want to have this conversation with you, Justin, because I feel like this is one of those things. You ever buy something and you knew you spent a lot of money on it and you wanted to love it so bad, but there's like, you love it 75% and you have to convince yourself of the other 25%. Because you're like, I put so much money in this, I have to love it. So
right,
that
you go call your friends and you're like, yeah, this is so great,
Yeah.
you know, and
so I was convincing myself that my neck didn't hurt. Like really, I was like, oh, my neck doesn't hurt. This is awesome. Like this is great. So then I incorporated the stool, and then I felt kind of lame using a stool with it because the whole point was like, oh, I want to stand. So anyways, 6 months pass. I built a relationship with the owner who sells the product. Right. I kind of built a relationship with him. I just started the RetroRalph thing. Well, no, I didn't get into the RetroRalph thing yet. So we're not there yet. So maybe we're a year. Because I'm trying to think, it's about 2 years ago. So maybe we're a year in. So I think I had that for about a year. Actually, that's it. It was about a year. So say I'm just brand new starting RetroRalph, and I'm like, dude, I feel like I want the play field the right way. I was like, I need to have the real form factor. What can you do? Now, he's a vendor. He sells these. So he's like, here's what I'll do. And the deal wasn't that good for me, guys, but I was like desperate because I'm like, man, I need this experience. I have to have a good one. So he's like, look, I'll do this deal where I'll give you, and we're gonna go to this one. He's like, I'll give you a 32-inch playfield. So we're gonna swap 32-inch vertical for 32-inch, vertical standard form factor playfield. He goes, but here's the thing, this one plays like 1,000 arcade games. So I'm like, oh, so he's being a good salesman, right? Because he's like, oh, the guy likes arcade games. I'm gonna hook him with the arcade games. So then that's when this thing came along. So you guys may have seen this on an old live stream, and it actually this live stream's about a year ago. So my timelines are matching up here. This thing has arcade controls on it. The commonality you're going to see with this thing is it also is running Pinball X, right? So all these systems are running Pinball X.
There's this theme you're forming, huh?
Yeah, they're all running Pinball X because it's a really pretty easy to use front end for virtual pinball. So and the cool thing is it is pretty simple. I've been playing with it. There's some complexities with like the DMD and the back glass and getting that all working right. And if you guys aren't familiar with what a DMD is, it's that screen. If you look, that screen that's like kind of between the two speakers, that's your DMD. So on a regular pinball machine, you would have had that screen. This is reproducing that in a virtual, in sort of a, like a virtual way. And then above it, anything that was on the back glass, that screen is there too. So that gets dynamically changes when you change the game. So I was really, really into this. So I'm like, man, I traded, but then you're probably going to ask, well, what happened here? Like, what was my problem with this thing?
Yeah, you don't have this anymore.
Because I don't have it anymore, right? So I have this. This is exactly 6 months. So I have this thing for 6 months. I was really enjoying it. It did a really good job. But if you guys have seen the ToySHARK, you probably know people are complaining about the bezel, right? Like the bezel goes too far in, or like it's.
Remember, you were showing this before, and this, in fact, is just a perfect example of what you can do when your playfield doesn't go to the entire edge of the. So it has like this kind of inner, border, right? This little inner bezel.
Yeah, like if I was gonna mod a 3/4 scale unit, this would be a really cool way to do that, right? Because you could kind of put the rails on it, but maybe paint the inside so that you paint the inside a color that's not as distracting, right? That silver color is distracting to what you're doing. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think you're right. This is a year ago because you're like way skinnier in this video.
Yeah, I know, right? Right, I'm fitting into like large, medium T-shirts and stuff.
Right.
So
this is athletic Ralph.
This was definitely athletic Ralph. Yeah, even my beard was even like better trimmed and stuff. So anyway, so this is what you're seeing right now is as I'm scrolling through. That's all Pinball X. But the cool thing is so this system has both arcade games, and the neat thing about this is the system's programmed so that if it's a vertical arcade game, it shuts off the back glass and it shuts off the DMD. So it does everything on the play field. Or sorry, I'm sorry, I said back. It turns on the back glass for the horizontal game, right? And then it shuts everything else off. So it doesn't need those screens. Like if you look right here, that's actually a good example.
Right. So you're playing it up on the back glass.
Yeah, so right now I'm playing Killer Instinct.
Right.
This machine is an i5 in this one, I believe. So this one had an even better PC than the VPcabs one did at the time. But you may see this all over the place. If you go to AliExpress or Alibaba or anything like that, you're gonna see this all over the place. So this machine is available there, and the pricing is a lot different. Like you'll see this for like $1,500 on Alibaba. Problem is, you'll see it for $1,500, and it's gonna cost you like $1,000 to ship it. So now you're at like
Mhm.
25. You're at like $2,500, right? So
Right.
so what were my beefs on this thing? I think it's like anything else. You get into a hobby, and he was helping feed my drug habit, right? Because he's like, "Oh yeah, oh, you're not happy with that one? Like, pay a little more, you get this next one."
Yeah.
So he happened to be this one is the one trade that worked in my favor. So this one worked in my favor because he was going to a show where he wanted to sell units. And he can resell these because I had kept it in pristine condition, right? He can sell it at the show as used with a little bit of a markdown, right? So
Mhm.
well, look, these are hot sellers at shows. They bring people into the booth. I'll do a deal for a 42-inch playfield. You're gonna give up the arcade controls though. So now I'm going all in on virtual pinball, right? This is full on. I'm going all the way there. So, so are you guys ready to go? Ready to go to the next thing, or do you want to? I don't know if there's any questions on sort of the journey so far. This
Yeah,
is
so review. We've gone through two cabinets, right? We started with the vertical one, the Vertigo.
yeah,
With Back to the Future, you got it from Craigslist. You got it used, and that kind of whet your appetite for a little bit,
for
but
sure.
your neck was hurting, right? And so that became an issue. So you went in, found a local dealer, and you wanted to trade up. So it's a 32-inch playfield, but now you're going to swap to a 32-inch playfield that is a standard cab, but this one has an i5 in it, so you can totally play like Killer Instincts with it. You got joysticks, you got buttons, you got the whole thing. But it just wasn't enough because RetroRalph always wants more.
Yeah, it was. And keep in mind this whole journey, Justin. Here's one thing I never did, and this is actually totally not my personality type. I never really opened it too much or cared about what it was running. I don't know why. I just didn't. I felt like my comfort zone was arcades. It
Yeah.
was MAME. It was, Raspberry Pis. It was Pandora's boxes. It was all this stuff that I've been working on for years.
hmm No, and I think I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying because the moment you open it up, right, you were okay with there being magic,
Yeah, a little
right? You're
bit.
like, I buy this product, it's ready to go, right? I don't need to know what's going under the hood necessarily. I know you love tech, and I love tech, and we nerd out about that. But the problem is, it's a time suck, or a friend of mine used to say it's a time vampire, right?
Yeah.
So once you open up that door, there's no going back, right?
Yeah.
You're going to possibly fry something, even though you're good at tech, you like accidentally, God forbid you flip the LVDS the wrong way and it just fries everything, something like that
That
can
could happen.
easily happen. Totally. I mean, not that happened to you in this last week at all, but anyway, let's move on.
Okay. Well, we're gonna get to that in a little bit. But Justin, thanks for teeing that up. But yeah, no. So someone actually is joking around in there that I downgraded for a ToySHARK. That's not true. So this is the unit I currently have. So when I went to this one, I was giving up the arcade controls, but I have so many freaking arcade games in my house, right? That like you guys know from watching the channel, like I have a lot of ways to play games, whether that be on my TV, in an arcade form factor, anything. So there's a ton of different ways to do it. So
Yep.
then I went to this 42-inch. This has 863 tables, right? So it's all pre-configured. It's got FX2, it's got FX3, it's got Visual Pinball 9, Visual Pinball 10. All those tables are in here. It's got Stern, it's got Gottlieb, it's got all of the Williams. It has all the tables there, and as a matter of fact, it's also running Pinball X, right? So this is when I started going like, dude, maybe this isn't as complex as I was thinking about it then, but I wasn't doing anything with it then. I was just thinking, hey, maybe I can build one of these because. And that's the thing. I don't want you guys. I think it's fun to have this conversation because we're kind of all on the same journey. I feel like I'm new to this. I'm not a virtual pinball expert. I just happen to have owned a couple of, maybe more higher end machines. So I have like these expectations, I guess, of what virtual pinball experience should be, right? And
So maybe I missed it. Why did you upgrade to this one? You went from 32 to 42. What was the big pull to upgrade to this?
well, it was this. It was go back to the 32-inch. I was like,
hmm
man, if the play field, I felt like this took me almost all the way there. But I think it was actually, I came back from a trip actually in Denver, and there's actually a place in Denver, if Justin, since you're going to Denver, it's called One Up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
went there.
there's a bar called One Up. One Up had all these awesome pinball machines, and I went there and I was like, oh, dude, if he had a 42-inch, that would be sick. And it was so happened that he was doing the show, and we did this like trade off. But it was a good one in this case. I had some other things I traded, like arcade stuff that I traded. So there was no cash exchange. It was all like stuff I had, right? So I got super excited, and when I got this, I was like, "Oh man, this is like holy crap! Like this rounded the corner for me. This completely took it to the next level. Even though it almost looks like the same, it almost is the same. This one has an i7 in it, so it's even more powerful."
Yeah, so you upgraded the whole way, right? So Vertigo had the i3, then you went to the i5, then you went to i7. Real quick, do you think it really makes a difference between those those three different systems?
This one is a noticeably different on certain pinball tables that maybe had like little glitchy things. Like it was noticeably you'd have to be a little particular to notice it, but there were some things where I was like, "Oh, whoa." Like it did make a difference. But But I think where it makes the difference is, and I'll go into this if we have time today, is in Visual Pinball, there's like a ton of settings you can tweak. So you can turn on a lot of things that have to do with sorry, you and I were talking about this the other day, and the physics of the ball, right? Like it just becomes more sophisticated, so you'll notice it feels even more realistic. So that's kind of, I think they tend to enable those things on the systems that have more power, right? So just naturally as they have more power. And I'm walking through this right now. There's a coin door. There's a bunch of buttons. All these buttons is a realistic plunger. That was on all of them, except the Vertigo didn't have a plunger. And these menu buttons, this is basically all buttons you would need to run or run Pinball X. So those 4 buttons on the side and the other 3, that's actually what you'd need. And then you'd need your plunger and your nudge buttons on the side. So what you're seeing here, all the buttons you would need if you were going to build this yourself. So I do still have this unit. I really, really do like it. But I realize that I've put a lot of money invested in this. And I also realize that this isn't something that like I can just go, "Oh yeah, hey, I'll totally recommend this. You guys should totally buy this," because it's expensive. Like that it could be out of reach for some, right? So that's why at the time still I hadn't dove in to check the software underneath, but at this moment I still believed that it couldn't be done on a little bit more of a budget, right? I didn't believe that there could be an affordable option, right? And there's trade-offs, right? Because we're talking about i3s, i5s, and i7s with 8, 16 gigs of RAM and like 1050 plus video cards. So they were really good video cards. So you got to think there's going to be some compromise if you go down, but I guess I didn't realize like, hey, maybe you don't need the most powerful thing in the world to still have a good experience. And maybe this isn't that complex. So one of the first things I did is and Justin, you were actually kind of part of this conversation when I was doing it is,
don't put me in this at all, man. I had nothing to do with this.
So part of it was like, hey, well, if I already have the machine, this 42-inch machine, like, couldn't I take the SSD and clone it? Right? Kind of shady, but the system in itself is a little shady. It has 863 tables loaded on it, which have the table data and the ROM. So it's not like that's all licensed, guys. Like it's not licensed. So
let's back up. Why would we want to clone it? Like, what's the difficulty? Can't you just go download all the ROMs and put together a pinball and you're done?
So that's the hard part. So even though all the table data and ROMs are actually out there and accessible to you, so I'm jumping around a little bit here. So I'm gonna go into this machine just real fast so you guys can see this. Hold on, sorry, I wasn't really ready to do it at this time. But
are you hacking again?
No, there's no hacking going on here.
You're gonna hack into some cloud server and install software. Is that what you're gonna do?
No. Hey. So if you go to vpforums.org, right? Basically everything is here for you. Like every asset you need is here. We're going to revisit this in a second. So like you can literally go here and say, "Oh, hey, I'd like to go to all the visual." Oh, sorry guys. Let me just get back there. I'd like to see all the Visual Pinball 9 ROMs. So I mean, they're here. But you need to know what to do with them for this to be of value, right? So I didn't know a lot of this, and I knew VP forums existed. I just didn't know how far down the rabbit hole you could go. Like you can basically build your own system fairly easily if you know what to do, right? If you know what pieces need to go together to make, like, how do I get from PC to operating system to loading tables and ROMs and putting a pretty front end on it. Like, what's the level of effort of all that? And how do I map all the keys? Like, is that something I could do? So that's kind of what landed me, in the next conversation we're going to have, which is kind of more of a funny one. It's funny but sad at the same time. So Justin,
this is the beginning of ToySHARK, right?
Yeah, it is the beginning of ToySHARK. So I'm going to take a drink really quick.
It's like, dude, you can use it for so many things.
Wait, what?
ToySHARK, it's like dude and dude and dude.
Dude.
You got ToySHARK. We have a ToySHARK fan page, which you should probably plug while you're at it. Like, what we're about to get into is the journey of ToySHARK. And we've actually put together a nice group inside Facebook. Ralph is going to have a link in the description later. If you want to join us in this journey, please join. See, I can plug this all day long because this is Ralph's thing. And kind of I'm just along for the journey. I'm just, tagging along. But let's do this, Ralph.
I can't remember what I called it. I think it's the ToySHARK unofficially official modding page, I think, or something. I don't even know what I called it. I'll put a link in the description. But so check this out. So I'm going to go over to the table camera really quick. So you'll notice there's this thing right here. Well, what the heck do you think this is? So this is actually the inside of the don't mind my little balls here. This is the inside of the ToySHARK. This is what it is. It's running Pinball Arcade. And it's running, shoot, Justin, I already forgot. I'd have to take the fan off to get to the processor.
Yeah,
I can't
all
remember.
These are embedded devices, right? So Arcade 1-Up, the At Games Legend Arcade. This particular one, we took it off, and I think it had a rock in it. Not like an actual rock, but the SoC is called ROCK. So we were kind of looking at the specs to see, is that running an i7? And of course it's not, but that's understandable. It's a Linux-based, system. They're trying to sell these affordably. At Walmart. But we're kind of checking out the specs, and interesting parts were like, what's the output resolution of this hardware, right? So how does it manage the interface to the panel? So we got a 24-inch play field. What's the resolution itself? And what type of games are they running on it? Can we check out those copy games? Come on, Ralph.
I just ran the intro. Shut up, Justin. Yeah. I'm just kidding.
In this episode, we're going to be ToySHARK. So, so we started doing an investigation and what they're running to see what it's capable of. And because Ralph had like a million ideas. I don't know which one you want to talk about because we went in like 5 different directions and we spent days coming up with solutions. Which one are you going with, Ralph?
Well, so I guess here's the thing, right? My original thing was I wasn't going to mod it. And I said that. I said that in my video, and I really wasn't. I had no intention of modding this. I mean, I really, truly, 100%, like, and I know a lot of times I'll say that, and it's like I'll end up wanting to mod it, but I didn't think it made sense. It was already $400. I don't know. I just didn't even think it could make sense, especially coming from the journey we were going on, right? I just was talking to you about a $4,000 unit with an i7. I'm like, what the hell's the point of modding this, right? Like, yes, they're running really old tables that are way less sophisticated than newer tables on this thing. So I'm like, there's no way that I'm going to be able, like, what's the point? I'm going to invest a bunch of money, or at least I thought. I was like, shit, I'm going to invest a ton of money. There's going to be no point. And so that's why a lot of times in forums when people are like, oh, we're going to throw a pie in it. It's like, no, you cannot do, like, none of that stuff's running on, first of all, Pinball X is running on Windows, and Visual Pinball's Windows. It's all Windows based. So none of it's really running on this kind of stuff. And you notice, it does a decent job of the tables running, those Gottlieb tables running on this. It's not terrible. Like, I'm not sitting here going, it's not fun. I actually did have fun with it, but I had no intention of modding it. So then Justin, I'm going to throw you under the bus a little bit, goes, hey, have you thought about, do you know what this thing is? Like, what's this thing running? And I go, oh, I don't know. I'll open it up. So I open up the thing and I get this out. I take the CPU heatsink off. He finds out it's a rock chip. He starts looking it up, looking at specs and everything. And then, he goes, this is when it gets bad because he's like, well, why don't you hook it up to a 1-Up? Like, why don't you hook it up to a 1-Up monitor? Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, I always have these crazy ideas, and I'm always like, kind of just messing with Ralph. And I'm like, what if now hear me out. What if you actually take the ToySHARK and connect it to an arcade 1-up cabinet, and you put a computer under it, and the actual like Space Invaders LCD is the back panel, right? You follow me, right? And then the ToySHARK itself, that play field becomes the normal gameplay. And he's just like, dude, you're crazy.
Yeah,
right?
like
You're
that's
crazy.
yeah.
And I'm like, and then I just stop. And then he's all like, but let me take a look and see what we can do.
Because I get like, you guys probably can. I don't know if I don't think, because a lot of my videos, like I've been doing a lot more of the live stuff lately, but
Right.
because my videos, like if I'm doing a mod, it's a produced video. I produce it. I go, okay, this is what I'm going to show. And so maybe you don't see, and I almost wish I could go back and, if I had the time, edit all the stuff that's happened or gone wrong in mods, because stuff happens all the time. Like, oh crap, I was tired, I was doing it late at night, and I reversed something, and I'm like, oh crap, I just blew a board out, right? It happens. I've blown power supplies out. I've done tons of stuff. I've wired 5 volts to 12 volts or 12 volts to 5 volts accidentally, blew out a expensive PCB. So anyway, so I here's the one thing that I'll get you. I'm going to get to the point, so trust me, I'm not going to keep going back and forth. So there's one thing about this board that's interesting is, here's your LVDS, right? We all know, I'm going to disconnect this from this. This is where I will talk about this board I have in my hand, even though I'm struggling with that right now, but here's your LVDS connection, right? Well, it goes onto your ToySHARK. Well, I'm going to just connect it really quick so you can see. So just assuming, and I forgot to bring the video board in here, sorry guys, but assuming I've got a video board, I can hook that into the video board, and now I can do whatever I want with it, right? I can go, all right, here's my monitor. My monitor, this is going into my monitor, this is going to my video board, and now I can do whatever I want with this ToySHARK. So that's the idea. I can take the ToySHARK screen and put whatever I want on it, right? I don't necessarily need this anymore. Well, so we were kind of going through that, but in reverse. I'm trying to hook the ToySHARK directly up to a 1-up monitor. Well, see that little red dot right there? That red dot, you guys know, if you've modded a 1-up, that's your pin 1. It's an important pin. It's an important pin to know, because these actually run power to things. These are actually power wires on this side, so they actually carry some power. Well, it was 50% shot I was going to get it wrong, because there are LVDS. So some LVDS boards start pin 1, like this one starts pin 1 on the right. But see how there's a little caret? That caret, little triangle, that triangle tells you where pin 1 is. Now, pin 1 on a 1-up is on this side. So on the release 1 and release 2 boards, pin 1 is on this side. They've actually, I think, changed it recently. I think pin 1 is actually on this side on wave 3, if I remember right. But so this doesn't have the little mark. So I had a 50% shot of getting it right, and I was so excited. Yeah. Well, not only did I blow out the board, so this is toast. This is, for all intents and purposes, dead. This is useless to me. So now I had a dead ToySHARK. I had a dead shark. So I got dead shark. I'm going to go back to
wait, there's more.
So I got the dead shark. Shark is dead. Okay, no big deal. No big deal. We can mod this.
He was stressing a little bit.
No big deal. We got this. No big deal. I'm RetroRalph. I mod stuff. No big deal, right?
I was angry Ralph for a while.
Okay, so maybe I got a little angry. I'm like, shit. So I'm thinking to myself, well, now I have to mod the freaking thing. So I was like, how did I go from being, because in the video that was me, dude. I was saying I don't want to mod the freaking thing. So now I'm like, shit, I'm stuck modding it. At least the screen is good. At least the screen's still good. I can reuse the screen.
So they're like, what can we do with the screen, right? It's 24-inch. What's the panel take for resolution? We're looking it up.
No problem. What could possibly
go wrong? We're trying to find something.
I mean, I blew one board. What's the chances? What are the chances that I could blow out 2 things in one day? I mean, what could possibly go wrong? So now I'm like, all right, I have a ton of encoder boards, right? The video boards that you hook up to a 1-up screen so you can plug HDMI in them, right? So just so you guys know, this LVDS standard, right? This LVDS standard does come in several different like shapes and sizes. Like the pinouts can sometimes vary a bit. So that's something you need to be aware of. So not only can the pinouts vary a bit, but some of these LCD monitors, so what they really are, like no one probably really cared about this, right? LVDS wasn't anything. You don't hook up your consumer electronics via LVDS. The reason why you don't is because inside all of those LCD panels, this exists, but it's going to a board that accepts VGA or HDMI or component or composite or something other, like something that a consumer electronics would use, right? So so I have a lot of these video boards, a bunch of them. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm just going to hook it up. We're going to be all good. Now everything was fine until this one step. So if you've done one-up modding, then you know there's a little voltage board that also powers the LCD. So it gets the LCD power. Now, that voltage board is actually part, you would normally take this power connector from a one-up monitor and put it straight into that LCD controller. You actually don't use that little breakout voltage board. I don't know if there's one inside. There may be. I'm not really sure. But it could be using the one on the board that's embedded, or it could be inside. I'm not 100% sure. So the ToySHARK has its own that varies from the LCD controller board. So I'm thinking, my first thought was use the one it comes with.
Sure.
But I didn't do that. I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. We're going all in. We're going full shark on this thing. Going all the shark. So anyway, so long story short, because I feel like I'm going on and on here. Long story short, I plug it in. At first it was giving me like a test pattern. It was giving me like red, blue. I think it's like red, blue, green. And that's actually usually okay. You're usually not blowing anything out when you get to that point. And I was like, oh, shoot, I forgot to put the voltage board on. Hold on. So I plug it all in. And I'm like, dude, something's not right. Like something seems wrong. Might be getting a little bit of that like electronics Bernie smell going on. I'm like, the Bernie smell is never good, guys. You get the Bernie smell. That's like burning electronic smell is usually at the point where you can be like, shit. Like that's when you know you just burnt something out. It's usually a point of no return. So anyway, so now I'm like, crap. So now I knew I was kind of running a risk by doing it, right? But I was wicked excited. And this is one thing I will say. If there was if I could do a modding like video, like 101, which I might do, like a modding 101, like lessons learned over like years and years and years of doing this, is like never rush. Don't let your excitement take over, and don't mod when you're tired, and don't mod when you're hungry. When you're hungry or tired, those are like times when your mind isn't really working that well. I was excited. Maybe I was a little hungry. So I was like a combination of two things maybe I shouldn't have messed with. But when you're excited, sometimes you're like, oh, I can do this. The outcome's gonna be so cool. I hosed it. So now I'm stuck with the freaking total dead shark. The LCD's dead. Like think about it. All I have left is quarter-inch melamine. Like I have wood with stickers is what I have left. Wood with stickers and metal legs. So I'm like, oh my god, like what am I gonna do now? So now it's like, well, I gotta mod it. So I have to.
You have no choice.
Yeah, right? I have no choice because and trust me, it doesn't. I've had a lot of modding mistakes for things I've done like rushing and stuff. So it's totally normal.
Now, I'm sorry, Ralph, but I'm going to back up for a second, and I'm going to just do a quick summary because I'm very familiar with this whole process because, Ralph and I both work remotely, and so we're very busy with our job, but there's times where both, I'm doing software development and there's no one, the team's not, they're off on their own doing their thing. So we'll call each other and talk, throughout the day, talk about the show that we're putting together now or modding ideas. We go back and forth with the video ideas we have. So he kind of took a break from the lunchtime stream this last week, and instead we're kind of doing these research we're talking to each other. So I witnessed the entire just destruction of his entire house. It seemed to be this curse that just like anything he touched would just explode, even to a point where he was like, we can't talk anymore. He's like, Justin, every single time we're on the phone together and you destroyed not only that, like, I think you have a couple one-up screens that you think, because you were like, well,
I think I blew out a one-up screen in the, now keep in mind, I have like 2 or 3 one-up screens, that are like kind of spares, but yeah, I'm pretty sure I blew out a one-up screen, the ToySHARK screen, and I wasn't convinced that I blew it out, so I tried another LCD controller and blew that controller out too. So I was and I was trying to explain to him, like
I'm familiar with this, and I'm like, look, all these come out with different panels, and the panels have different resolutions, and the LVDS controller boards are different for each one. So as long as you make sure you have the aspect ratios correct, then it should work. And make sure you. And he would say, "Do you think I have this correct?" And I said, "Well, you have a 50-50 chance of being right and wrong." And he's like, "Yep, looks like I picked the wrong way." And so I'm sorry about that, but I wanted to bring it up. You went that far, might as well go the rest of the way.
Yeah.
And but what's really cool about that, and we were talking about it later once this was all done, he calmed down. There was even a point where you were done with all that, and the next day you were like, "Oh, I'm gonna play with the the head-to-head arcade one-up," and all of a sudden it was like, nope, backing out because something shorted really quick, and he's like, "I'm just gonna fry everything if I continue on," which is crazy, right? So anyway, we're going through all this, but the positive side, and this is where I'm leaning you to, Ralph, is then he said, I just so happen to have bought an extra 23.9, I think it was, inch monitor.
It's a 23.5-inch monitor, but it was for what? Tell him what you're gonna tell him what it was for, right?
Yeah, so it was actually for like the live stream right here, so we'd have a second screen and we could put the chats in there, and while we're doing the show, you can see the chats going and communicate with everybody. We're trying to improve our setup and everything. And he's like, "You know what? I think that sucker would fit right in the ToySHARK." And then it began.
And so why I thought that is, so this monitor, I was looking for a monitor that I could so the mount that was on, it was so you could flip it vertically. And one of the things it was a thin monitor, right? I knew it was thin. I was like, it might fit. So now I'm like, all right, let me go down that path. So I take the backing off of the one-up monitor. So I'll run a video real quick, but you're looking at that's actually the new monitor inside there, so you can see it fits perfect. So I did have to actually, I'm going to backtrack one moment. So someone said, what lessons could we learn from this? I would say, until we're 100% certain, and now I'm kind of stuck because I'm not going to go buy another ToySHARK, so it's going to take someone else in the community to figure this out. Until someone comes up with the right LCD controller board and makes that work, I would say if you're looking to do that, I would maybe caution you to wait until someone comes up with, this is the board. So actually someone posted, hey, this is the LCD board. It was in one of the modding groups for ToySHARK. If someone's in there and remind me, they can let me know which group it was in. I think it was in the Detroit Love one. And he's like, this is the board. I don't think that board works either. So I would just be careful, right?
Now, hold on. While we're here, because if people are researching this later, this is what I want to say. So the VS display, like the ETA Prime board we call, the one for Arcade 1-Up, that's the one he found. It's very specific to the resolution that Arcade 1-Up is using on the first generation model, right? And that's a 5x4 LCD screen, right? So 5x4 is very important. And
Justin, can I leave?
Is my verbosity too high?
No. Can I leave you real quick while you continue this? Because I'm going to grab a board.
Okay, cool.
I feel like we need visuals. All right, I'm leaving the show. I'm done. Justin, hope
cool
it's all good, Justin. See ya.
We can do this. Okay, so here's how it works, right? So the actual panel for the first generation Arcade 1-Up cabinet is 1280 by 1080. I think that's right. So it's a 5x4 resolution. So this is popular in the early 2000s when computer monitors started going LCD, from CRT to LCD. It was a 5x4 resolution. But keep in mind, these video games from the 80s and 90s were 4x3. Okay, so all of a sudden we're 5x4. And so anyway, that's fine. Raspberry Pi has a whole bunch of 5x4 resolution games because it's a common screen and format for LCDs. So that's the type of converter board you need, one that handles that resolution for the panel, right? And then, once you're HDMI in, it can handle all the upscaling. Okay,
I'm back.
But hold on. So generation 3 Arcade 1-Up cabinet, which is fantastic, we're still talking about Arcade 1-Up, is actually 4x3. Yes, thank you. 1280 by 1024. But the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Star Wars, and Marvel is not 1280 by 1024. Does anyone know what it is? Does anyone know the resolution of the third generation Arcade 1-Up cabinet? Come on, put it in the comments.
You win absolutely nothing.
No one knows. It's 960p. It is fantastic. You're thinking, wait, Justin, so it's lower resolution and that's supposed to be better? Yes. And the answer is because 240 times 3 is 960. And so it's perfect integer scaling. They just hit this one out of the park. I can't stress it enough. That's why there's no shimmering on the latest Arcade 1-Up cabinets, because that aspect ratio is actually in line with the first one. Now, keep in mind, people are saying, hey,
that's how Dad
how
did
do
it.
I
That's
pick
how
up?
America
How do I
does it. And it's worked out pretty well so far.
Sorry.
No, so it's the one below. It's the not 1600 by 1200. It's something by 960. I can't remember, but it's 4x3, and so that's a pretty good monitor for them. They found a 17-inch with high contrast ratio that's 4x3. So that takes a different LVDS to HDMI board. Right. Because the resolution is different. So that's why there's two on the market. People are saying if you have a Gen 1 Arcade 1-Up, got to do this one. If you have a Gen 3, you have to use a different one. So then we're like, what about ToySHARK? It's not either one of those.
Yep.
It has to be a third one.
Yep.
So
if
you look at the panel for ToySHARK, if you find the one with the right resolution and match it, that's going to be the one.
Yep, and that's what we haven't figured out yet. So no one's cracked that yet, and unfortunately, I'm not going to be the one to do it because I blew out the monitor, so I don't have anything to test on. But
from memory, I think the ToySHARK was like something by 800. I looked up the monitor and it said the LVDS takes something by 800.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's 16:9 resolution or aspect, So that's
if you look,
the LVDS you need.
If you look, this is the thing is, so where it can get confusing is this board, this VS display board. These look identical, so they must have different firmware running on each one of these. Because but they'll look exactly the same. So you'll notice there's actually now people, who knows? No one probably gave a crap about these before Arcade 1-Up. Like, I can imagine the companies that carry these must be like, at first must have been like, why is everyone buying these, right? Because I'm sure these weren't like hot commodities before that, right? But now the people that sell them will actually say like Arcade 1-Up Revision 1 or Arcade 1-Up Revision 2. They'll actually call that out in their advertisement for these. So this one did not work on the ToySHARK, and I was rolling the dice, right? I was rolling the dice. I got excited, but sometimes that doesn't work out, and it didn't work out. So, it's kind of a bummer, but that's the thing. It's almost like we need to figure out what that is in order to make that feasible. So here I am at a point where I've got a dead shark. I've got no, and so now I'm thinking. At first I was pissed. So there was like progressions, right? It was like, I'm pissed. It was like cycles of, I was going through this like cycle where I was angry. Then I'm like, all right, it's not that bad. Like, I like modding stuff. But then I kind of where I got excited is I started playing with Visual Pinball. So why I told you, like, the whole time it was this mystery to me, because I never decided to go play with Visual Pinball or Pinball X and find out how this works. I didn't care. But then I was like, well, I have a reason to care now. I have a reason to care. I have a broken bricked unit for all, and I did it. My fault, right? I bricked my own unit.
That's so right. It's your fault.
It's my fault. 100% responsibility there.
Now, hold on. Let's talk about that monitor. So that is not the ToySHARK monitor, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually the new monitor.
So how much did that monitor cost? I think that's an interesting story.
The monitor was about, like, I was looking for something around $100. I want to say it's like 109 or something like that.
See, I truly think this is not a bad option. Like, where Ralph landed, at least so far in this project, is not bad, because the LVDS converter board is about $35. But keep in mind the original ToySHARK actual panel, right? It's not 1920 by 1080, but this one is. This is 1920 by 1080. Yep. It's got a refresh rate of 5 milliseconds instead of like 16 milliseconds. And for pinball, that's going to make a difference.
Yep.
So what we're actually talking about is, instead of spending like $35 for the right converter board, you bump up another 75, and you get super high contrast ratio. You're going to get 5 milliseconds response time, and you're going to get full HD. So it's not that bad of a jump. So I think he's actually going somewhere that's great.
Yeah, and the cool thing is sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes you're like, the shortcomings of a mod open up new doors, right? Sometimes it's just like that in life, right? Sometimes you're like down in the dumps, and then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, some new things come, or you think a little bit differently, because you're like, man, I've been doing the same thing and it's not working. Like, I got to switch it up. So this is one of those things where it kind of did fall into place in a weird way. Now the monitor by default didn't fit. It kind of did, but then I'm like, all right, if I could just get the plastic covering off of by the way, I'm running it on the higher powered machine right here. We'll get to that in a minute, but I was able to take the monitor cover off really easy, and it fits perfectly. I had to put a little bit of a shim on either side, but I got it all tightened down and snugged down, and it works really good. But the cool thing is I can put VGA on. It has the native VGA on it now, so I'm good. And the viewing angles are really good on this. So I can look at it from multiple angles, and it looks great. The other thing that's cool, and I don't know if you guys realize this, is that and maybe if you've seen this in a video, the ToySHARK actually has real glass. So just like a real pinball machine, it has real glass, and the real glass will fit, and you'll be able to secure it down. So that's pretty cool because you're going to maintain the original glass that came with it, and it all fits really nice, as you can kind of see.
So I missed it when, because we were talking on the phone through most of this, but you went on your own when you're actually taking the TV apart. Was that difficult?
No. So honestly, it actually popped right off. The back panel, really? I was just giving it a little bit of pressure, and it popped right off really easy. Now, the only thing you had to be careful with is in those monitors, the other cool thing, this is really cool, and I haven't explored this yet, there's a tiny audio amp on the board of the TV, and it comes with these two little speakers that are actually mounted there. The cool thing is you could totally splice those wires and you reuse potentially the ToySHARK speakers. I haven't gotten that point yet because I just haven't had the time to, but that audio amp I gotta think is probably around the same power as the audio amp. The ToySHARK audio amp's really small, so I'm thinking that might be really cool too. Like maybe we can just drive it straight from there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of neat.
That's not bad, right? Because then you could say the controller board's like $35, but you normally have to buy an amp and the speakers and stuff like that. But you could take this TV and kind of like utilize all the parts in it to kind of be a single solution.
Yeah.
And but what are you going to drive it with?
Well, so that's the thing. So that's where I went a little all over the place, because originally, if you look in the first video here, I'm running it off of a really beefy laptop, and it was working really, really good. But then I'm thinking, all right, how low could I go? And I happen to have, Justin, I think I sent you the specs on it, and I didn't have enough time to prepare it for the show, so I'll throw it in the description. But the reason why I don't want to throw it in the description yet is because this is still a journey we're going on. I'm not convinced that the PC I'm using is giving me exactly the experience I need, but it's pretty good. So let's
talk about it. I think I remember it. So you started, your first trial was because the whole idea was, let's see if we can provide a solution, a kit, a console kit of like, like a package deal where you can say, look, if you get this monitor, if you get this PC, it's not a bad deal, right?
Yeah.
So I think you did like an Atom processor, 1.4 gigahertz. It's a machine you had laying around. And that's the other piece. The question is, could this be done with things that you already have in your house? Like maybe you have an extra computer that's like 2 or 3 years old.
Yeah.
That you could utilize. So why don't you tell us about that? The 1.4 Atom, how did that run?
So it wasn't that bad. So I used that a little bit. The only issues I had a couple issues with. Now keep in mind I'm running Visual Pinball 9 tables, so I wasn't doing anything ultra sophisticated. I'll go over and show you guys really quick. So I actually have a PC running here. This is actually running Visual Pinball. I'm sorry that the machine. I'm gonna actually see if I can, while we're talking, just make this display a little bit more zoomed in so you guys can see. But It didn't run terrible. So this actual machine is, I'll get the specs up here in a second, Justin. Just give me 1 sec to get this ready. I was a little bit behind on getting this fully ready. So I'm going to do 150, scale it 150%, and then that way everyone should be able to see it a little bit better. So this machine right here is running Visual Pinball. This is the machine I started with just to kind of do some basic testing. This one isn't very beefy though, so don't expect a whole lot, any kind of impressive specs from this thing. But it does run it. And I don't know that so this is the Atom. This is the first one I started with. So this is the 1.4 gigahertz Atom with 4 gigs of RAM. So it's it's running Windows 10. It's not great, but it's not terrible either. But it's a fanless PC. Those are the specs. But if you look,
it's a small form factor, right? You're actually, this was potentially in an arcade build, right? You were going to throw.
Yeah, this was
in an arcade cabinet.
This was actually going to have Big Box running on it, and it was just going to be. I was just going to use this to run Turtles games. It was just going to be all. It was going to be all of the Turtles games, the older ones, and I was going to make like an all Turtles cabinet. So when I started looking at the VP forums, right, I started going down that path of, hey, what's here, what's available to me. Now, keep in mind, if you ever want to check this out, you do need to create an account. So once you create an account, everything's free. You're not paying for anything here. So I wanted to see, like, hey, you know, I started with Addams Family. It was a pinball machine I liked. I did Addams Family and Terminator. I didn't have time to throw that on before, but what I discovered was that, and I'll show you, this is all behind the curtains kind of stuff, is, you know, I downloaded 2 things. So I had to go to the VP forums. I downloaded 2 things. You go to Visual Pinball and you need this first. So this, oh, sorry, not that. There's a tables folder under Visual Pinball, and in the table, damn it, sorry guys. The tables folder has this right here. So that's the Addams Family table. This is the table data. So this is like all the layers of graphical, you know, pieces of the table that make up that actual pinball machine, that mechanical pinball machine. So you need that first. So you need to get that file, and then the other file you need is the ROM file. So if you look at, this all comes in a single package, by the way. You just download one thing, and I'll show you where you do that.
That's interesting.
And
so you got the ROM file, that's the actual gameplay, but the actual assets are separated.
They're separate.
The ROM, so
yeah, so
I guess that makes sense because it's pretty high graphics, right?
Yeah, one's the game ROM, and then the other is the actual, like, graphical elements of the table. Now, to get to the point I am right now, the only thing you need to do is you have to go to VP forums and you go to getting started first. And then you're going to run VP installer. So if you want to play with this, you know, you got to register first and then download VP installer. VP installer will give you everything you need to get started. So it'll give you Visual Pinball 9 and Visual Pinball 10. I'm only messing with Visual Pinball 9, but everything you see, everything you saw was already done. The only thing you have to do after you install VP installer, and it'll walk through, it'll do some .NET stuff and everything like that, is then you need to get the table assets. So here you're going to go to this Visual Pinball tables section. You're going to go hit this little drop down here, and you're going to go, because we don't have a backglass, we're not running any backglass right now, we're just running the playfield, you're going to say full screen cabinet. So here is where you're getting, when you click this is all the table graphics. So this is basically the table data. So there's a bunch of stuff here, right? And you can sort this by, what's probably easiest is just sort it by most popular. And you'll most likely see all the games that you remember and love. Like the first one that comes up is Terminator, although that's actually the Chrome edition, which is a mod. I'm not a biggest fan of the mod, but anyway, so you go there, you get your table data. And after you go get your table data, then you need your ROM. So you go to ROMs, and then you're going to grab, you know, if it was, you know, whatever that ROM is of whatever that table is. So the table and the ROM need to be the same, obviously, right? If I go and download the table and I don't have the right ROM, it's not gonna load. So if I scroll down, you'll see, all right, Addams Family, Mars Attack, Simpsons Pinball Party. So then once you get those files, you're doing 2 things. You're gonna, you're gonna go to the C drive, and you're gonna go to Visual Pinball. And when you have those files, you're gonna put one of them you're going to put them in 2 places. You're going to put your table data in the tables area, right? It's usually a RAR file, so you have to have like WinRAR or something like that. So put that here. So put your table data there. And then the other thing you're going to do is you're going to actually take the ROM folder is located in it's VPin MAME. So you go to that folder. And then here you're going to have your ROMs. So that's where you put your ROM. So table data goes in the table data in Visual Pinball directory, and then you have to go to VPin MAME, and you put the ROM file there. So once that's done, now keep in mind, you don't have any fancy front end here. This is just basic 101. You're going to go to the latest version of Visual Pinball 9, which it installs for you. This is going to be all installed. So if you go to Visual Pinball directory and you did what I just told you, you're going to be able to launch this. Now the resolution's a little wacky because I have the percentage increased on the size. You go to File, you go to Open, and you're going to point it to that table. Now, providing that ROM is there, right? I'm in the table folder. If that ROM is in the ROMs directory and I hit this and hit open, it's going to open all the layers that are involved in building that table and putting it together. So it's going to show you this. So this is where I was like, whoa, dude. This was a moment where I got kind of, the realization kicked in that this looks kind of complex, right? So I was poking around and going, holy crap, there's like 8 layers of graphical data that this software has to account for. So you start going, all right, I kind of get maybe why you needed a beefier PC to do this. There's a lot going on, and this is not even accounting for the issues with how we're going to do the physics of the ball, right? So but keep in mind, you don't have to mess with all this stuff. I'm just showing you. There's a bunch of physics, the speed of the flippers, right? So how fast are they going to go? The strength of them, the elasticity, like how crazy is all this? So we don't think about this. We just play the game, but these are all elements that it's trying to do, right? The law of gravity, like it's trying to make the ball drop in a natural way. So you start going, holy shit, I guess I get why it would require a higher powered PC to make this all work. Or, you strip out things like Windows. Can I get it running on an Android device and make it maybe dial back some of the physics, right? So when people say the ToySHARK has lag, maybe it's not really, maybe it's induced lag, right? Like they've dialed back some of these settings to make the experience good on that particular system, right? Or decent. So if I hit play here, again, I don't have any front end, but if I hit play here, it's going to load all the table data and it's going to bring this table. It's going to bring the table on a screen. Because I have this all the way I have it, it's a little wacky, right? It's not going to look exactly like this if you were doing it live. But so here's actually the table. So it's loaded the table, and you can see right now, so let's say I had this all set up. Well, like how would I map it to buttons and stuff? Because right now I'm just looking at a table. Now keep in mind, this would take up your whole play field, right? So if you had a screen, let's say it's like your ToySHARK screen or the screen I just showed you, it would consume that whole screen, right?
Right.
If the resolution was set right. We'll talk about that because there's actually settings to set the resolution properly to make sure it takes up your whole screen. So now that I have that, let's go over to our table space real quick. If I plug one of these into a Windows PC, so we all know these, right? If you've done one-up modding, you know these. These are USB encoders. If you plug these into a PC, they come up as buttons. They come up as a joystick. So if you look up, if you go search for a joystick, you'll see these. And actually, the cool thing about Windows, and the problem is, you know what, Justin? If you wait a second, I could probably plug this in and show this part of it. If you guys are interested, I can show this part. So I'll show you, how would I map the buttons? That's kind of important. How would I map the buttons to this software so it actually works? Do you guys want to see that? If you do, I'll show it really quick. I know we're getting up on the hour period, but if you're interested to go, all right, well, how would I actually make the flipper, move when I hit this button, right? Like how would I do that? If you guys want, we can go that far. If not, we can kind of just talk about it in theory and concept and kind of move forward because we're running up on time here. So I'll wait to see if anybody has any comments in the comment section or the chat.
Yeah, let us know what you think, and then we have a question: how big are those ROM files? I think the question is essentially like how much space is being taken up for, like, say, one game.
So check this out. So for instance, that machine I showed you, that 42-inch machine that had about 1,000 games on it, it has 128 gig SSD. So think about it. That's not bad, right? To have 1,000 tables and 128 gig SSD, that's not that bad. So you start to think
yeah. I do have one question. It looks like we're going to want to do the demo in just a second, but okay, so there's a lot going on, right? So you have the pinball, you got the ROMs, you got places where you can load it. You need a pretty decent machine. We talked about the Atom being a machine, but couldn't you just clone that machine that you had before? Like, wouldn't that, it already had like 8,000 tables in it?
You mean could I clone this guy? The one with 806, sorry, I said 1,000, 863. Could I clone it? Well, I thought that. And I was like, well, shoot, I don't have to go to VP forums. I have a drive that has 863 games. I'm going to take the drive out and I'm going to clone it, or I'm going to copy all the tables, and it saves me a ton of time. Well, China was pretty smart on this. So that device is a China brand device, right? There are people that will buy those from China and rebrand them here in the United States. They may call them so-and-so's virtual pinball, and it'll look exactly like this, right? It's going to look just like this device does, but it's going to be called something else, right? They'll call it, Johnny's Pinball, whatever it is. And, Johnny, how you doing? Yeah, I sell pinballs. I got Johnny's Pinball over there. All right, so anyway, so you got Johnny's Pinball, right? And where was I going with this? So I take the drive, I put it on my machine. Well, and I had kind of been tipped off that this was true. The whole drive is encrypted. So all of the files are in an encrypted format. You actually can't copy them. I mean, you could crack the encryption if you're really smart and know how to do that and do drive forensics and stuff, but they were smart. The whole thing is cloned. And now what's interesting is they have directories like A, like the letter A, right, for alphabet. It'll have A. And all the games that are labeled A are in there. So the quantities of the games are correct. It's just the game files are all encrypted. So there's nothing I can do with it. Now I tried other things like, I'm going to get into Task Manager and I'm going to break in that way. Nope. All of your options to get into Task Manager are all disabled. So it'll actually it actually gets you to like a prompt. The one interesting thing though that I did learn is that most of these virtual pinball devices, because there's a philosophy, and I haven't gone far enough down this path. There's a philosophy that Windows 7 runs visual pinball better than Windows 10, and that Windows 10 actually has some lag. There's a debate online about that. I haven't noticed that, but again, I'm testing like 5 to 10 tables right now. It's not like I've done extensive testing. So that machine's running Windows 7 Ultimate. Yeah.
Not to confuse anyone, we went down a rabbit hole for a little bit there to talk about how he has a virtual pinball machine that already has 800 some games on it. So the idea was, could we just image that drive and be like, basically clone it and then make some weird hybrid ToySHARK running on an Atom that has all the games from it? Doesn't look like that's very viable. But what you can do is go to this VP forum and just simply do the work of downloading the games that you actually want to play, and then set it up. And I think we're running out of time. You got to jump to, there's a front end that kind of pulls this all together.
Yes.
But we also want to do the demo of the setting up the buttons. So
yeah, so we'll jump around because I think we're gonna have to do this in a 2-part. Like, there's no way we're gonna cover all this in an hour. So, but one thing I want to throw on this is, yes, I'm using an Atom, right? That Atom PC to do the testing. But I've now upgraded it a bit more. I have a Celeron now that I'm using. It's a little bit higher clock speed. It's got a little bit more RAM, and and it actually has an onboard. It has an onboard video card. It's still a single board kind of computerish type thing, and it has 2 HDMI outs. So the one thing that I'm having some issues with, and this is where I'm like, well, maybe you do need the full PC with a graphics card, is the back glass. So I'm having problems getting the back glass and the virtual DMD correct. So I'm still working on that. Now, someone that has more knowledge of virtual pinball may be like, oh, yeah, dude, there's no way you're going to do it without dedicated graphics cards. And maybe that's the case.
I think Brian's been talking a lot in the chat here. I think you have this all set up. Is that right? If so, maybe you could tell us the spec of the machine that you would recommend for this to work on. And then I think we got a little bit of lag between us live and the chat. So let's jump to, you want to talk about Pinball X?
Yeah, I'm actually going to show real quick. I want to show what happens when you plug in those, like how would I map the buttons, right? I think that's kind of interesting. I think people want to see that. So what I'm going to do is right now, I'm going to actually minimize this right now. So I'm going to minimize all this stuff. I want to show you guys something that's kind of interesting. So in Windows, they make it a lot easier when you plug in these virtual or these USB encoders. So check this out. That's funny. The DMD is actually staying on my desktop. That's the DMD right there. You can move that around. So anyway, so hold on one sec. I'm going to plug it in really quick. So I'm leaving you for a moment, console kits. I'm literally going like a foot away. So give me one second.
Plug it in. All right. So Ralph is going, and he's going to plug it in, and then we're going to hear a doot, doot, doot.
Well, hopefully
here it comes. Any minute now.
It's plugged in, so I don't know why we're not seeing that. But let's check this out. So if you're in Windows 10, you can type in joy, and it'll show you USB joysticks and stuff like that. So right now you'll see that it shows. God dang, this DMD. Hold on, I should have just closed that out. But anyway, so you see this here.
Brian's running. Do you see that real quick?
Yeah, I mean he's got a super beefy. Yeah, he's got a pretty beefy PC. So
pretty sweet, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. So why I'm trying to do it in a more budget fashion is because I'm trying to see can it be possible, and it's not. The Atom isn't a great experience, but the Celeron I have is actually not too bad. It wouldn't be normally the specs you'd want, but it's running some of the Visual Pinball 9 stuff. So if you look really quickly, I'm gonna I don't have these necessarily plugged in the right space, but I'm pressing the buttons here. I'm gonna put the table. Actually, I can't really combine those two. So I'm actually pressing the buttons that are connected to my USB encoder. So I don't know if you guys can see that. It's lighting up what button I'm pressing. So how these USB encoders show up in Windows is if you look at all these USB encoders typically have something that says K1 through K8, right? K1 shows up as button 1. So that's really cool because in Windows, it makes it really easy. So right now, I'm going to actually kick over to the table.
So where's the K1? Yeah, go to the table. Let's show
so right now, this side of the board is actually K1. So this is K1 and K2. So I wouldn't recommend doing this typically live, but so I'm actually putting them in K1, K2, K3, and K4. So I have them all aligned here. What my plan is, I'm just going to make K1 and K2 my right and left flipper so you guys can see that that'd be pretty easy to do. so you can see how easy it would be to map this if you were, using this live. So I'm going to go back here to the PC. I'm going to actually minimize this. Now, let me make sure I have 1 and 2 correct. So I don't know if you guys can see that, but 1 and 2 are lighting up as I'm pressing them. So I'm going to go and exit that. I'm going to exit this. This is wicked 101 basic stuff, guys. Like, this isn't going to get you necessarily, but at least it gives you a little bit of the experience thus far for me. So I'm going to close all that. What we're going to do
while you do that, hold on. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is gold here. So Brian, I want to make sure I understand you correctly. You say you're running embedded Windows 7, and then you say x86 versus ARM-based, big difference. Does that mean you're running ARM-based? Like, I'm assuming it's ARM-based embedded Windows 7, and that's like has more performance. Is that right? Because that's gold information right there. Because everything that we've tested so far has just been, like more of an x64, x86 platform. Anyway, show us.
So while
Ralph.
he's doing that, so check this out. So button assignments, right? Now, what I would typically do is have this up at the same time. That joystick tool, I'd have that up at the same time. So if I have that up, now keep in mind what I'm showing you. Like, if you're using a Windows machine to do all this, this will all apply. It's just the beefier machine you have, the better experience you're gonna have. So right now, if I go in here, I go, all right, I know what button 1 and 2 are. So I can have this up while I'm configuring it, going, all right, I know where button 1 and 2 are. So I know I want button 1 to be left flipper and button 2 to be right flipper. So that's like really easy for me to do. So I can go in here and go, all right, let me close that out. Close that out. I'm gonna go, all right, button 1, I want that to be my left flipper. Button 2, I want to be my right flipper. But if you have that USB tool open at the same time, it's really easy for you to do this. So now I'm just gonna hit OK. And now I should be able to open up that table in Visual Pinball. Now keep in mind, like I said, we don't have a front end running. So this is like if you were going directly into MAME, right? This is like going the nitty-gritty stuff. You're not using a beautiful front end to make this look like awesome for your friends and everyone that comes over. But that comes later. We won't have time to do that today.
Right.
All right. So I got
that's how Dad did it.
That's how Dad did it. So, all right, so I got this so I got this up right now. I'm gonna say play table. It's gonna change. The aspect ratio is gonna be a little wacky because it's gonna play the table vertically shifted. So we're just gonna have to deal with that for a minute.
Mm-hmm. Use your imagination for a little bit. Here we go.
All right, so now I got the table up. It's running. So I'm gonna put coins in. Now keep in mind I didn't put buttons for coins, right? So I'm gonna have to go press.
Welcome on it, guest.
Actually, I have it running in. It's running in what's it called? Free play, so it doesn't matter. So I'm able to do that. But check this out. So I want to see if I can incorporate. Let me see if I can incorporate my table cam, so you guys can see that at the same time. So give me 1 second. I don't know if I have the table on here. So let me see. Give me 1 sec, guys. Video capture device, add existing, table webcam. All right. All right, so here's my table, right? Now check it out.
Boom.
Like, that was pretty easy, right?
Where's your applause button, man?
So that was pretty easy to do, I feel like. This was when I was like, damn, dude, this isn't that complex. The DMD is when it starts getting difficult because, now that I know how to map these buttons, now I can map a plunger button. Now I can map nudge buttons. I can, you know what I mean? So I was pretty like pumped up about this. So if I hit my enter button, which ends up being my plunger, it's gonna be really hard to play in this manner, but you know what? It's like you start realizing, like, wow, this is pretty easy to do, or easier than you'd think. So anyways, I just thought this would be fun to share, and hopefully you guys thought that was fun too, because I think it's one of those things where, I didn't necessarily think we would go all the way with this today, but we did, and I think it was pretty fun. So I'm gonna get back to hopefully you guys thought it was fun too. So that was kind of, we kind of like Justin and I didn't even think we'd get this far, so we actually got pretty far into it. And I think hopefully you guys learned a little bit. I know right now we're dealing with only Visual Pinball 9 tables, so you can do that, and then you start to learn Pinball X, and now you got a cool front end on it that looks like this. So the front end I'm using on this is actually, watch when I scroll through the games, this is actually Pinball X. So it's a pretty cool little front end. That one didn't have the graphics on it yet, but and it makes it really simple, right? You basically have your flippers go right to left in that menu. Your enter button or your launch button for your actual ball brings you in, so right there, and then you hit play game, which is your player one start button, and it loads the table up for you. It's really cool. So hopefully you guys think this is neat, and it kind of demystifies it a little bit. And keep in mind, this is all brand new. I learned all this week. So just think about if you had the time to invest in it, maybe this will encourage you or inspire you to try your own virtual pinball build. Because I'm pumped up now. Because now I'm like, well, dude, now I can mod the Shark, and we could do something fun with it. But keep in mind, the PC, don't take this as like Ralph said I can run this on an Atom processor, because that's not what I'm saying. I was just trying to get the basics down, right? I had something that was there. Could I actually like learn on that and then apply it to a better PC as I kind of go through the process? So yeah, hopefully this was fun. I don't know. I had a good time showing you guys, and the demo worked good, so that's a good thing. So it means I learned as I went.
And Brian said, basically that Windows 7 embedded is the way to go for your base operating system, because the Windows 7 embedded is going to be more lightweight, so it doesn't have all the extra overhead that the full Windows 7 had. So that makes sense. So great tip, pro tip
that's
from
awesome.
Brian. Awesome. So what have we learned today? Don't loan any of your electronics to Ralph. He will destroy them. That's a little mean, right? Oh,
yeah, it's kind of mean-spirited.
I'm sorry, buddy.
It's pretty messed up, dude.
That was mean. I went a little too far there. Sorry about that.
Yeah, thanks. I don't even have anything to make fun of you for right now. I'm trying to think. I don't even have anything.
Oh, it's so hard, right? No, thanks for joining. We love everyone that joined. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us to the journey of RetroRalph. Wait, this isn't my show. This is your show. Take over, buddy.
You seem like you were doing the outro, so I was like gonna let you run with it.
Guys.
I was gonna pass it off to you, dude. That's what we got going on. It's you. All right. Anyways, thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Justin, for being my wingman on this. This was really fun. I broke the shark. The shark's dead, but we're gonna revive the shark, right? We're gonna resuscitate the shark. I don't know what this is.
I guess we're gonna need a bigger boat, though.
So anyways, guys, thanks again for joining. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully you learned something. This is all literally brand new for me. So I just want you to know, like, we're taking this journey together. I'm going to have more videos as I learn, and hopefully I bring it down to some basic level that makes it easy. Because I do notice there aren't a lot of, like, really... there aren't a lot of detailed videos as to how this gets going, or it assumes you have a really deep base knowledge of something to get started off. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much. Justin thanks you. I thank you. I hope everyone has a great holiday. I don't know if this will be the last one, but if it is, Merry Christmas. But I'm thinking we can squeeze in one more before.
You're talking about for the year. It's not like we're ending the show, right? It's just...
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yes, no. It doesn't mean we're ending the show. It just means, like, for maybe between now and the end of the year, this might be the last one. But if you guys demand it, we might figure out how to make it happen.
Right, but for sure, make sure you tune in. January 6th, we're going to be live at CES, probably every night, showing you like all the coolest things that we find right there in the showroom, and giving you a quick summary of everything that is awesome that we're going to be covering. So stay tuned for that.
We're going ape shit at CES. Justin's not even doing it justice. We're going absolutely mofo ape shit, because
That's how
Dad did it. That's how America does it. And it's worked out pretty well so far. Thanks, guys.